Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're embarking on a documentary-style journey into what is, honestly, one of the most fascinating, fiercely debated, and completely mind-bending concepts in modern science and philosophy. We're talking about the technological singularity. We're going to explore the mechanics, the history, and the incredibly profound implications of a moment in time when technology might just literally outpace our human ability to understand it. To really set the stage for you, consider this warning from the late physicist Stephen Hawking. He pointed out that while creating artificial superintelligence would be a monumental triumph, it carries unparalleled risks. When we talk about the singularity, we are looking at a topic that fundamentally divides some of the absolute greatest minds of our time. Some envision this utopian future of endless advancements, while others, well, they fear it could literally spell the end of the human era. Our goal today isn't to take a side, but to impartially uncover exactly what this concept means and why it matters so much to all of us. Okay, let's dive into this. The technological singularity is defined as a hypothetical event where technological growth accelerates way beyond human control, producing wildly unpredictable changes in human civilization. The word singularity here is actually borrowed from mathematics and physics. Just as the normal rules of space and time completely break down at the singularity of a black hole, a technological singularity means that our existing models of society and technology just break down. At this threshold, human understanding essentially loses continuity, and we cross into an entirely new, completely unpredictable reality. To help us grasp the sheer magnitude of this, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the origins of the concept. Second, the actual mechanics of acceleration. Third, the promises and perils. Fourth, we'll look at the skeptic's perspective. And finally, the future outlook. Section 1. Origins of the singularity. Tracing the idea. The roots of the singularity actually stretch back a lot further than you might think. Way back in 1950, Alan Turing laid the groundwork by theorizing that machines could exhibit intelligent behavior. But the very first real mention of a singularity in this specific context came from the brilliant mathematician John von Neumann. In 1958, Stanislav Ulam reported a conversation with von Neumann about an ever-accelerating progress of technology that was approaching an essential singularity in history. But it was in 1965 that mathematician I.J. Good gave us the foundational theory we still talk about today. He introduced the concept of an intelligence explosion. Good argued that an ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines, leaving human intelligence totally in the dust. As he put it, the first ultra-intelligent machine would be the last invention man need ever make. Later on, in 1993, Werner Vinge popularized the actual term singularity. And then in 2005, Ray Kurzweil really brought it to the global mainstream with his famous book. Section 2, The Mechanics of Acceleration, How It Works. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the theory actually works in practice. A foundational mechanic here is something called recursive self-improvement. It kicks off with step 1. Creating what's known as a seed AI. Basically, this is an artificial intelligence that has engineering capabilities matching or even surpassing its human creators. Once you've got that, step 2 begins. The AI autonomously works to improve its own software and hardware. Because the AI is now smarter and much more capable, step 3 triggers. Successive self-improvement cycles repeat. Every single generation of AI is faster and smarter, meaning the next upgrade takes even less time to complete. This scales exponentially, vastly surpassing human cognitive abilities in a surprisingly short window of time. And fueling this entire series is a very specific historical timeline, 18 months. Historically, this is the time it takes for the world's general-purpose computing capacity per capita to double, a phenomenon you probably know as Moore's Law. If computing power continues to double at this astonishing rate, theorists argue that building the physical hardware capable of housing an artificial superintelligence isn't just a possibility, but a mathematical inevitability. But an intelligence explosion actually relies on two mutually reinforcing causes. On one side, you have hardware improvements. That's the raw physical computing power and speed. On the exact opposite side, you have algorithm improvements, the software actually rewriting its own source code to become qualitatively smarter. Now, while hardware advances at a relatively steady and predictable pace, some experts argue that the software side will present much more complex challenges. Software innovations are often highly unpredictable and generally bottlenecked by human research. However, if a seed AI figures out how to rewrite its own algorithms efficiently, fully contained within its own systems, it could unleash an explosion of intelligence that doesn't just calculate things faster, but literally thinks in entirely new ways. Section 3. Promises and Perils. Two Possible Worlds. So the level of risk we face largely depends on how this transition actually happens. Theorists divide this into two distinct scenarios. A hard takeoff means the artificial superintelligence recursively self-improves in a matter of minutes or hours. It happens so incredibly fast that humanity has literally zero time to initiate any error correction or adjust the machine's goals. We completely lose control. On the flip side, a soft takeoff suggests that while AI becomes far more powerful, it does so over decades. This is crucial because it allows for ongoing human interaction, giving us the time we desperately need to steer its development, correct course, and integrate it safely into our world. Depending on how that takeoff occurs, the theoretical impacts are, well, staggering. On the optimistic side of things, futurists like Ray Kurzweil envision biological immortality, where advanced nanotechnology continuously repairs our human cells. Others, like Jaron Lanier, discuss digital ascension, or mind uploading, where human consciousness is literally digitized into computers. But the perils are equally profound. Experts like AI researcher Hugo de Garis strongly warn of existential threats, suggesting an artificial superintelligence could simply view humanity as a competitor for scarce planetary resources and eliminate us. The scary part? The AI wouldn't necessarily even need to be actively malicious. It might simply be optimizing for a goal that just happens to not include our survival. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the shift we're talking about. Consider the data from back in 2014. Even then, the total amount of digital information stored worldwide massively dwarfed the information encoded in the DNA of every single human being alive. Digital technology is infiltrating the very fabric of our society so deeply that it is acting as a massive evolutionary force all on its own. I mean, we are already merging with our technology, from digital algorithms facilitating human reproduction through online dating to our absolute unwavering reliance on AI for global aviation and infrastructure. Section 4. The skeptic's perspective. Why it might not happen. Of course, there is another side to this story. Skeptics point to some very severe technological limiting factors. For instance, Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen argued for something called a complexity break. He noted that the further science progresses in understanding intelligence, the exponentially harder it actually becomes to make additional progress. There are also undeniable physical limits. As Jeff Hawkins points out, computing size and speed will inevitably hit a hard physical wall. In fact, CPU heat buildup already causes massive problems, threatening to melt chips that run at excessively high speeds. Furthermore, a lot of researchers argue that technological progress traditionally follows an S-curve, meaning it accelerates fast at first, but eventually levels off, rather than infinitely accelerating in some endless exponential growth. Cognitive scientist Steven Pinker summed up this skeptical view absolutely perfectly. He pointed out that futuristic fantasies from decades past, things like dome cities and nuclear-powered flying cars, never actually arrived simply because we imagined them. As he so bluntly puts it, sheer processing power is not a pixie dust that magically solves all your problems. Having a faster computer does not automatically equate to creating a self-aware, recursively improving superintelligence. Section 5. The Future Outlook. When will it happen? While timeline predictions vary quite a bit, they cluster remarkably close to our present day. Ray Kurzweil famously predicted human-level AI by 2029 and the full singularity by 2045. Hans Murvac pointed to the year 2050 for intelligence far beyond human. And when looking at broader surveys of scientists and industry experts, like the Bostrom and Mueller poll or the A-multiple survey, there is a very strong cluster of predictions anticipating artificial general intelligence, or human-level AI, somewhere between 2040 and 2050. That's really not that far away. So the crucial point is that there is absolutely no universal consensus here. In a 2017 survey of authors from top machine learning conferences, the scientific community was incredibly divided on whether the intelligence explosion argument is even broadly correct. About 29% felt it was likely or quite likely, but a massive 50% felt it was unlikely or quite unlikely, with the rest sitting right there in the middle. The very people actively building these systems are split right down the middle on whether an accelerating superintelligence will actually materialize. And that leaves us looking toward a horizon that is as completely opaque as it is fascinating. The technological singularity represents a potential rupture in the very fabric of human history. Whether it brings about an era of biological immortality and profound cosmic discovery, or whether it acts as an insurmountable existential risk, just the mere possibility forces us to confront our relationship with technology, right here today. So I will leave you with this final thought to ponder. If a superintelligent machine is truly the last invention humanity ever needs to make, what will be our purpose in a post-singularity world? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.